The snow started before sunset. By midnight, the entire Wyoming highway looked buried beneath a moving white ocean, the wind screaming across the asphalt hard enough to shake passing trucks sideways. Most people had already abandoned the roads hours ago. State troopers were warning drivers to stay home. Businesses closed early. Gas stations locked their doors. But Luke Mercer kept driving. The former Navy SEAL leaned forward behind the wheel of his rusted Ford Bronco, fingers tight around the cracked steering wheel as freezing snow hammered the windshield. The heater barely worked. Every breath fogged the cab. The fuel light had been glowing for nearly 20 miles. He had $38 left in his checking account. That was it. $38 and some loose change rattling in the cup holder. 12 years serving his country had somehow led him here, alone, broke, exhausted, driving through a blizzard with nowhere left to go. The irony would have been funny if it didn't hurt so much. A green highway sign flashed through the snow. Black Ridge. 12 Mills. Luke barely noticed it. His eyes looked hollow now, like someone had scooped the life out of him months ago and forgotten to put it back. Maybe it started in Syria. Maybe it started the night the helicopter went down. Or maybe it started afterward. When the war ended for everyone except him. The windshield wipers groaned again. Luke adjusted the old pistol resting beside him on the passenger seat. A Sig Sauer P320. Clean, loaded, military habit. He never traveled without it. Outside, the storm worsened. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. For a moment the road disappeared entirely beneath the blowing snow. Then something moved. A small shape stumbled across the shoulder. Luke frowned. At first he thought it was a coyote. Then the shape collapsed. His combat instincts reacted before his brain caught up. He slammed the brakes. The Bronco fishtailed violently across the icy highway before crunching to a stop near the ditch. The engine idled heavily. Luke stared through the snow. There it was again. A dog. Tiny. Barely moving. Jesus, for several seconds he didn't move at all. He didn't have money for himself. He hadn't eaten a real meal in 2 days. The motel back in Casper had finally thrown him out that morning after he missed another payment. He couldn't save a dog. But the sound came again. A weak little whimper buried beneath the storm. And something inside him cracked. Luke opened the truck door. The cold hit like a hammer. Wind blasted snow across his face as his boots sank knee-deep into the ditch. He pushed forward carefully, scanning automatically out of old military reflex. Tree line, road shoulder, elevated ground. Threat assessment never really leaves men like him. The puppy lay half buried beneath the snow. German Shepherd, maybe 8 weeks old. One ear bent awkwardly downward. Thin ribs visible beneath filthy wet fur. A leather rope was still tied around its neck, dragging through the ice behind it. Someone had dumped him out here. Luke crouched slowly. The puppy tried to growl. It came out as a tiny shaking sound instead. Easy, buddy. The dog trembled violently, dark eyes filled with fear and exhaustion. Luke carefully slipped off his heavy jacket and wrapped the animal inside it. The puppy immediately pressed closer against his chest for warmth. That nearly broke him, because he remembered another German Shepherd, Axel, the military working dog that saved his entire team during a raid outside Raqqa 3 years earlier. Axel had detected the pressure plate hidden beneath a doorway seconds before detonation, saved 4 operators, lost his own life doing it. Luke swallowed hard. The storm howled louder. He looked down at the freezing animal tucked against him. Guess it's you and me tonight. The puppy closed his eyes, and for the first time in months, Luke felt needed. Black Ridge wasn't much of a town. 1 grocery store, 1 gas station, 1 diner glowing dimly beneath neon lights. Snow covered almost every rooftop by the time Luke rolled into town near 1 in the morning. The Bronco sputtered badly entering the parking lot beside the diner. Luke killed the engine and sat there silently. The puppy slept curled inside his jacket on the passenger seat. He looked peaceful now, safe. Luke stared through the windshield for a long time. Then he reached for his wallet. $38. If he bought food and gas, maybe he could reach Colorado by morning. If he paid for a motel, he'd have almost nothing left. If he took the dog to a vet, he exhaled slowly. Smart move would have been leaving you on that highway. The puppy opened one eye weakly. Luke shook his head. Yeah, I know. Inside the diner, warmth and coffee smell wrapped around him instantly. A tired waitress looked up from the counter. She noticed the dog immediately. "Oh my God." Luke nodded once. "Found him in the storm." The waitress moved closer carefully. "Poor thing's freezing." "Yeah." She studied Luke next. Former military recognized former military. Maybe it was posture. Maybe the eyes. "You eat yet tonight?" Luke hesitated. "Not really." 10 minutes later, a bowl of beef stew sat in front of him along with warm water for the puppy. Luke stared at the food. "I only ordered coffee." "On the house," she said quietly. He almost refused out of pride, but hunger won. The puppy devoured small pieces of meat from Luke's hand, while the storm battered the diner windows outside. For a little while, neither of them felt alone anymore. Then the front door opened. 3 men walked inside, heavy jackets, muddy boots, snow dusting their shoulders. Luke noticed them instantly, not because they looked dangerous, because of the way they scanned the room. Methodical, alert, predatory. The middleman spotted the puppy immediately, and his expression changed. Luke felt it at once. That cold shift in atmosphere combat veterans learn to recognize before violence starts. The man approached, slowly, tall beard, scar across his chin. "That your dog?" Luke kept feeding the puppy calmly. "Found him outside town." The man stared harder now. "Mind if I take a look?" "Nope." Silence. The waitress suddenly looked nervous. The other 2 men spread slightly near the entrance without realizing Luke noticed. But he noticed everything. Always. The scarred man forced a smile. "That dog belongs to my brother's ranch." Luke finally looked up. Funny, because it had a rope around its neck and was dying in a ditch. The man's jaw tightened. "That shepherd's expensive." There it was. Not concern, not kindness, value. Luke slowly placed his spoon down. The puppy pressed against his leg beneath the booth. "You lose a lot of expensive dogs by the highway?" Nobody moved. Snow hammered outside. The scarred man leaned closer. "You don't understand what you've got there." Every instinct inside Luke sharpened instantly. The same feeling he'd gotten before ambushes overseas. Wrong. Something was wrong here. Luke stood slowly. Even exhausted and half-starved, he carried himself differently than civilians. Quiet balance, controlled posture, dangerous calm. The men noticed too. Scarface narrowed his eyes. "You military?" Luke didn't answer. That answer alone was enough. The tension thickened. Finally the man stepped back. "Keep the mutt." Then he smiled, cold. "But I'd leave town fast." The 3 men walked out into the storm. Luke watched through the window as a black pickup waited outside beneath falling snow. No license plate on the front bumper. His pulse slowed instead of rising. Combat reflex. The waitress whispered, "Luke, I don't think those men were ranchers." Luke looked down at the puppy. The little shepherd trembled again beneath the booth. Then Luke noticed something strange. A small tattoo inside the dog's ear. Tiny black numbers, and beneath them, dot, a military marking. Luke's stomach tightened. No, that wasn't possible. He leaned closer. The puppy licked his hand weakly. But Luke barely noticed now, because he recognized that symbol. DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. The puppy wasn't abandoned. He was running from something. And suddenly Luke understood one terrifying fact. Those men weren't trying to rescue the dog. They were hunting him. The motel smelled like mildew and old cigarettes. Luke locked the door behind him and immediately checked the window angles out of habit. Parking lot visibility, escape routes, blind spots. The puppy slept wrapped in blankets on the bed. Luke sat beside him quietly. DARPA. What the hell was a military research marking doing on a German Shepherd puppy stranded in Wyoming? He gently examined the dog's ear again, under the weak motel lamp. Definitely real, not fake. Years ago, Luke had worked joint operations involving experimental military K-9 programs overseas. Enhanced tracking dogs, battlefield reconnaissance animals, explosive detection breeding lines. But this felt different, more classified. The puppy suddenly whimpered in his sleep. Luke noticed scars beneath the fur around its ribs, injection marks, repeated ones. His expression darkened. Someone had been experimenting on this animal. Outside, headlights rolled slowly across the motel parking lot. Luke froze instantly. A black pickup. The same one from the diner. It stopped outside. Engine idling. Luke quietly killed the lamp. The room fell dark. Combat mode returned like an old ghost stepping back into his body. Every sound sharpened. Every breath slowed. The puppy woke and looked toward the window. Then it growled. Not loudly, but enough. Luke carefully reached beneath the pillow and pulled out the Sig Sauer. The truck engine remained running outside, waiting. Luke moved silently toward the curtain and peeked through a tiny gap. Two men sat inside, watching the motel room, his jaw clenched. They'd followed him. The puppy moved beside his leg now, ears twitching nervously. Luke crouched beside him. "You picked a hell of a time to meet me, buddy." Then someone knocked softly at the motel door. 3 slow knocks. Luke aimed the pistol. Silence. Another knock. A woman's voice whispered from outside. "You need to leave, right now." Luke didn't move. "Who are you?" "My name's Rachel." "Please, they're coming back with more men." Luke cracked the door carefully while keeping the gun hidden. The woman standing outside looked terrified. Mid-30s. Snow covering her coat. "They work for a private security contractor outside town," she whispered quickly. "People disappear out there." Luke studied her face. Truth. Fear. "They're looking for the dog?" She nodded immediately. "You don't understand what that animal is." Luke almost laughed darkly. "Funny. That's exactly what they said." Rachel glanced nervously toward the parking lot. "They've been transporting dogs through Black Ridge for months. Military contracts. Experiments. Nobody asks questions because everyone here's scared of them." Luke looked back toward the puppy. The little shepherd stared up at him silently now, trusting him completely. And suddenly the exhaustion inside Luke changed into something colder. Purpose. The same feeling he'd carried before missions. Protect the innocent. Complete the objective. Rachel whispered, "If they realize you were SEAL Team?" Luke's eyes snapped toward her. "How do you know that?" She looked ashamed. "My brother worked security for them. He showed me your file tonight after they identified you from the diner cameras." Luke felt genuine danger settle into his chest now. Professionals. Organized. Not random criminals. How many? "At least 8 at the facility tonight." Facility. There it was. Luke made his decision instantly. He grabbed his duffel bag. The puppy stood immediately despite exhaustion. Rachel looked stunned. "What are you doing?" Luke checked his pistol magazine calmly. "What I was trained to do." Outside, the black pickup doors suddenly opened. Men stepped into the snow. Luke's voice turned ice cold. "Get behind me."